the Greco-Persian Wars. These conflicts between the Persian Achaemenid Empire and Greek city-states claimed the lives of over 300,000 people. It all started when Cyrus II of Persia conquered the Greek region Ionia in 547 BC. In 499 BC, the Ionian revolt against their Persian overlords ignited like wildfire, drawing in allies from Athens and Eretria. Their forces managed to capture and burn the Persian city Sardis in 498 BC. Darius the Great vowed to punish Athens and Eretria for their audacity. In 494 BC, at the Battle of Lade, the Ionian forces faced a crushing defeat, bringing the rebellion to a swift end. In 492 BC, the Persians launched their first invasion of Greece, but were not successful. They returned in 490 BC and managed to subjugate many regions, but also burned the Greek city Eretria. The Persian forces were, however, defeated by the Athenians. In 480 BC, Xerxes, son of Darius, led a colossal army in the second invasion of Greece. Victory seemed assured, but at the Battle of Salamis, the Greeks delivered a crushing blow to the Persian navy, turning the tide of war. The Delian League rose from the ashes, led by Athens, and continued to fight against Persian oppression for years to come. The Punic Wars, a clash of titans between the mighty Roman Republic and the formidable Carthaginian Empire, spanning the vast expanse of the Western Mediterranean and claiming the lives of almost 2 million people. The First Punic War erupted in 264 BC, ignited by Rome's hunger for expansion and Carthage's territorial ambitions in Sicily. With Carthage reigning supreme at sea and Rome dominating on land, the battleground stretched from the shores of Sicily to the sands of North Africa. For 23 grueling years, the two powers clashed, until in 241 BC Rome emerged victorious. The Treaty of Lutatius saw Carthage pay hefty reparations, while Sicily became Rome's newest province. The Second Punic War began in 218 BC, marked by the audacious march of Carthaginian general Hannibal across the Alps into Italy. For 14 relentless years, Hannibal's forces wreaked havoc on Roman soil. But Rome's tenacity paid off, culminating in the pivotal Battle of Zama in 202 BC, where Hannibal met his match. Carthage, stripped of its territories and military might, bowed to Rome's will. In 149 BC, Rome seized upon Carthage's defense against Numidian aggression as a pretext for the Third Punic War. The siege of Carthage ensued, culminating in 146 BC when Rome razed the city to the ground, leaving nothing but ruins in its wake. The Gallic Wars. From 58 to 50 BC, Roman general Julius Caesar clashed with the tribes of Gaul, present-day France, Belgium, Germany, and Switzerland, leaving a trail of bloodshed with over 1 million casualties in his wake. It all began in 58 BC, when the Romans came into conflict with Gallic and Celtic tribes on the borders of their growing empire, drawing neighboring tribes and the Germanic Suebi into the fray. By 57 BC, Caesar had resolved to conquer all of Gaul. Battles raged across the land, from the eastern territories where the Nervii, one of the most powerful Belgian tribes, nearly bested him, to the naval clash with the tribe Veneti that secured northwest Gaul. By 54 BC, Caesar conquered much of Britain with a large army, but the tribes resisted and fought back, slowing down the Roman conquest. It was in 52 BC that the Gallic resistance reached its zenith, led by the indomitable Vercingetorix. Despite a notable victory at the Battle of Gergovia, the Gallic coalition fell before Caesar's relentless siege tactics at the Battle of Alesia. The following years saw limited resistance, solidifying Roman control over Gaul. Yet, resistance simmered on, persisting until as late as 70 AD. Jewish-Roman Wars. These wars had an estimated death toll of up to 2 million. The First Jewish-Roman War, raging from 66 to 73 AD, and the later Bar Kokhba Revolt from 132 to 136 CE, were fervent rebellions by the Jews of Judea and the Eastern Mediterranean to reclaim independence from the grip of the Roman Empire. These rebellions, fueled by a desire to restore a sovereign Judean state, ultimately ended in devastation for the Jewish people. In the wake of these conflicts, Jerusalem fell, its walls breached, and its temples razed to the ground. The Jewish population faced displacement, enslavement, and brutal suppression. Judea itself was renamed and reorganized, while Jerusalem was rebuilt as Aelia Capitolina, a pagan colony where Jews were forbidden to reside. Galilee and Babylonia emerged as new hubs of Jewish culture, while smaller communities scattered across the Mediterranean and the Middle East. The destruction of the Second Temple in Jerusalem in 70 AD by Roman Emperor Titus had a big impact on Jewish religious practices. It laid the groundwork for the emergence of Rabbinic Judaism, shaping the faith into the dominant form it is today. The Three Kingdoms War. Spanning from 220 to 280 AD, this war is one of the bloodiest chapters in Chinese history, characterized by the dominance of three powerful states, Chao Wei, Shu Han, and Eastern Wu, following the collapse of the Han dynasty. This period was born from the chaos and infighting among warlords that plagued China from 184 to 220 AD. The subsequent stability between the three kingdoms from 220 to 263 AD was shattered by conquests and usurpations, leading to further conflict and the eventual reunification under the Jin dynasty by 280 AD. The estimated death toll of the Three Kingdoms War is 40 million. Arab-Byzantine Wars. This was a series of conflicts between Muslim Arab dynasties and the Byzantine Empire, aka the Eastern Roman Empire, from the 7th to the 11th century, with an estimated death toll of 2 million. Beginning with the initial Muslim conquests in the 7th century, the wars continued under the Rashidun and Umayyad caliphs, resulting in the loss of Byzantine territories like Syria and Egypt. Despite occasional truces, conflict persisted, with both sides launching raids and counter-raids well into the 10th century. The Byzantines initially adopted a defensive strategy, but later launched counteroffensives. The tide gradually turned in favor of the Byzantines after the decline of the Abbasid state and the strengthening of the Byzantine Empire under the Macedonian dynasty. The closure of the Arab-Byzantine Wars came with the emergence of new threats, including the Turks and various Mongol invaders by the 11th and 12th centuries. Subsequently, the focus shifted to the Byzantine Seljuk Wars as the Seljuk Turks continued the Islamic invasion of Anatolia. The Reconquista. The Reconquest refers to the prolonged military campaigns launched by Christian kingdoms in the Iberian Peninsula against Muslim rule from 711 to 1492 AD, causing around 7 million deaths. This effort began following the initial Muslim conquest of this region by the Umayyad Empire. It all started with the Battle of Covadonga around 718, where an Asturian army achieved a significant victory against the Umayyad forces. During the latter part of the 10th century, an Umayyad minister launched a relentless series of military campaigns spanning 3 decades, aiming to conquer the northern Christian kingdoms. The collapse of the Arabic Islamic State, Caliphate of Cordoba, in the 11th century, led to the emergence of small independent Muslim states, which the northern Christian kingdoms exploited through intimidation, civil wars, and tribute payments. Despite a resurgence under the African Muslim Almohad Empire in the 12th century, Moorish strongholds began to fall to Christian forces in the 13th century, culminating in key victories at Las Navas de Tolosa in 1212, the Siege of Cordoba, 1236, and the Siege of Seville, 1248. By 1492, the Granada War during the reign of the Spanish Queen Isabella I marked the surrender of the Muslim enclave of Granada. The entirety of the Iberian Peninsula fell under Christian control. The Crusades. This was a series of religious wars orchestrated by the Christian Latin Church during the medieval period. Most renowned among these campaigns are those aimed at recapturing Jerusalem and its environs from Muslim control, spanning from 1095 to 1291, initiated with Pope Urban II's call to arms at the Council of Clermont in 1095. The Crusades garnered fervent support across all levels of society in Western Europe. Motivations varied widely, from religious devotion and feudal obligations to aspirations for fame and fortune. Subsequent expeditions, often led by monarchs, received papal blessings and reduced punishments for sins, culminating in the establishment of 4 Crusader states in the Holy Land, corresponding to the modern states of Israel and Palestine. Despite initial successes, including the conquest of Jerusalem in 1099, Crusader presence in the region gradually waned, ultimately ending with the Siege of Acre, a city in North Israel, in 1291. Beyond the Holy Land, the Crusades encompassed many conflicts. Crusades against fellow Christians, such as the Albigensian Crusade and the Hussite Wars, unfolded in the 13th and early 15th centuries. There were also conflicts against the Ottoman Empire, the Reconquista, and crusades against pagan tribes in northern Europe, the Mongol Invasions. The Mongol invasions and conquests occurred from the 13th to 14th centuries, creating history's largest contiguous empire, which spanned Eurasia and resulted in 30 to 40 million deaths, Led by Genghis Khan, the Mongols unified nomadic tribes and expanded through Central Asia, the Middle East, and Eastern Europe, devastating regions, destroying cities, and slaughtering populations. In Central Asia, the conquest depopulated large areas, while in the Middle East, Mongol forces aided the Mamluks against the Muslims. In East Asia, the Mongols conquered regions including present-day Iran, Iraq, the Caucasus, Syria, and parts of Turkey, with raids extending southward into Palestine. In North Asia, Genghis Khan conquered Mongol and Turkic tribes. In Europe, they invaded and razed all the major cities of Russia, Poland, Hungary, and Bulgaria, sparking terror and panic. In South Asia, Mongol invasions faced fierce resistance and could not penetrate far into India, while in Southeast Asia, they invaded Burma, Vietnam, and Java, facing both success and defeat. The Mongol invasions indirectly contributed to the establishment of major Thai states in Southeast Asia. The 100 Years' War. The 100 Years' War, ignited by English claims to the French throne, saw Edward III of England's fleet triumph at Sluis in 1340, securing control of the English Channel. Edward's invasion of Normandy in 1346 led to the decisive Battle of Crécy and the capture of Calais in 1347. Despite Edward's ambitions, setbacks and disasters led to the peace treaty of Bretigny in 1360. Spain joined France against England, marking a turning point with the Castilian victory at La Rochelle in 1372. By 1380, English holdings in France were lost. France's leadership faltered, but internal strife and waning English support ushered in a second peace period from 1389 to 1415. In 1414, Henry V of England's demands for territory and marriage to Charles VI's daughter fueled tensions. War resumed in 1415 with Henry's siege of Harfleur and subsequent victories, leading to the Treaty of Troyes in 1420. However, English setbacks arose, including Henry's brother's death and challenges at Meaux in 1421. The tide turned with Joan of Arc's emergence at Orleans, ultimately leading to the Treaty of Arras and Paris's loss. By 1453, the French reclaimed Rouen and decisively defeated the English at Castillon, ending English control over Gascony and concluding the 100 Years' War. Conquests of Timur. Timur, also known as Tamerlane, was a Central Asian conqueror who aimed to restore the Mongol Empire, styling himself as Genghis Khan's heir. Using Islamic imagery and referring to himself as the Sword of Islam, he became the most powerful ruler in the Muslim world. His campaigns led to the deaths of 8 to 20 million people. From 1370 to 1405, he led a series of military conquests that resulted in the establishment of one of the largest empires in history. Beginning in the 1370s, Timur launched campaigns to expand his empire, conquering regions such as Persia, Central Asia, the Caucasus, and parts of Russia. His conquests were marked by ruthless tactics, including massacres and the destruction of cities. One of Timur's most significant military achievements was his defeat of the Ottoman Sultan Bayezid I at the Battle of Ankara in 1402. This victory solidified Timur's control over much of Anatolia and weakened the Ottoman Empire. Timur's empire reached its peak during his reign, stretching from present-day Turkey to India. However, his death in 1405 led to the eventual disintegration of his empire due to internal strife and external pressures. The 30 Years' War. This was a devastating conflict primarily fought in Central Europe between 1618 and 1648, resulting in 4.5 to 8 million deaths and significant population declines. While initially rooted in religious tensions from the Reformation within the Holy Roman Empire, it evolved into a broader struggle for European dominance, involving Habsburg-ruled Spain and Austria and the French House of Bourbon. The war began in 1618 when Emperor Ferdinand II was removed from his position as King of Bohemia, sparking a wider European conflict. It went through phases, including a civil war among German states and a broader European struggle between France and the Holy Roman Empire, with Sweden and Spain's involvement. The Peace of Westphalia in 1648 ended the war, granting greater autonomy to German states and recognizing Dutch independence. The conflict altered the power dynamics in favor of France, laying the groundwork for Louis XIV's expansionist campaigns that would shape European affairs for the following 6 decades. The Ming-Qing Wars. The transition from the Ming to the Qing dynasty occurred amidst a series of conflicts known as the Ming-Qing Wars, spanning from 1616 to 1683 and claiming over 25 million casualties. These wars marked the ascendancy of the Manchu-led Qing dynasty over the declining Ming dynasty in China. The Manchu clan conquest of China began with the rise of Emperor Nurhaci, who united the Jurchen tribes. Under Nurhaci's successors, the Qing forces gradually expanded southward, overcoming Ming resistance and capturing Beijing in 1644. However, Ming loyalists continued to resist Qing rule for several decades, leading to prolonged military campaigns and internal strife. Ultimately, the Qing dynasty emerged victorious, consolidating its control over China and ushering in a new era of Manchu rule. The Napoleonic Wars. These wars erupted from the turmoil of the French Revolution, pitting Napoleon's French Empire against shifting coalitions across Europe and claiming up to 7 million victims. Beginning with Britain's declaration of war in 1803, France fought against Britain and its allies, Austria, Russia, Naples, and Sweden. Napoleon's victories, notably at Austerlitz in 1805, cemented French dominance. Subsequent attacks in 1806 and 1809 from the former German Empire Prussia, as well as Austria, tried to challenge him, but faced defeat. However, Napoleon's invasion of Portugal and Spain, in order to weaken Britain's economy, sparked a fierce Spanish resistance. Meanwhile, Russia's defiance led to Napoleon's catastrophic 1812 invasion. The Sixth Coalition, bolstered by Austria, Prussia, and Russia, dealt decisive blows at Leipzig in 1813 and Paris in 1814. Napoleon's brief return in 1815 ended with his defeat at Waterloo by the Seventh Coalition. The Congress of Vienna in 1815 sought stability, but set the stage for future conflicts, marking the end of an era and the dawn of modern Europe. American Civil War. The American Civil War lasted from 1861 to 1865. It was a defining conflict in United States history, fought between the Northern States, Union, and the Southern States, Confederacy, over issues such as slavery, states' rights, and the preservation of the Union. The war erupted following the election of Abraham Lincoln, whose anti-slavery stance prompted several Southern states to secede and form the Confederate States of America. The conflict witnessed major battles such as Gettysburg, Antietam, and Bull Run, and saw significant advancements in military technology and tactics. Ultimately, the Union's victory led to the abolition of slavery and the reunification of the United States, but the war exacted a heavy toll in terms of casualties, estimated around 1 million, and infrastructure damage, leaving a lasting impact on American society and politics. The Dungan Revolt. Spanning from 1862 to 1877, this war saw two waves of uprisings, primarily led by Chinese Muslims called the Hui, during the reign of the Tongji Emperor of the Qing dynasty. The violence started with riots instigated by the Hui, leading to massacres of the Han Chinese. In retaliation, the Han carried out revenge massacres against the Hui. As the conflict raged on, the region witnessed a staggering loss of life, with millions perishing from massacres, famine, and disease. Entire populations vanished. The chaos continued until General Zhuo Zongtang defeated the allied Neon rebel group in 1868. Though the rebellion erupted on the banks of the Yellow River, its roots ran deeper than a simple uprising against the Qing dynasty. Instead, it was a fragmented affair, driven by personal vendettas and grievances rather than a unified cause. World War I. World War I, spanning from 1914 to 1918, was a global conflict between the Allies and the Central Powers. It spread throughout Europe, the Middle East, Africa, and parts of Asia, and resulted in an estimated 17 to 40 million deaths. The war started in 1914 when a Bosnian Serb assassinated Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne. Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia, but Russia intervened to defend Serbia, leading to Germany, France, the Ottoman Empire, and Britain being pulled into the conflict. France aimed to counter German expansionism and regain territory lost in previous conflicts. Britain joined to prevent German dominance in Europe and protect its imperial interests. The Ottoman Empire initially remained neutral, but later joined the Central Powers, led by Germany and Austria-Hungary. Germany's initial strategy in 1914 aimed to conquer France before shifting focus to the Russian front. However, this failed, as the conflict widened to encompass more areas. Bulgaria, Italy, Romania, Greece, and other nations entered the fray from 1915 onward. The United States joined the Allies' side in 1917, while the Russians, following the October Revolution, negotiated peace with the Central Powers in early 1918. German offensives in 1918 failed, leading to Allied counteroffensives and German surrender. The Armistice Agreement of 1918 ended the fighting, followed by the Treaty of Versailles, redrawing borders and creating new nations. The war's aftermath contributed to the onset of World War II, the Russian Civil War. The Russian Civil War erupted after the October Revolution, Following the overthrow of the Russian Provisional Government, factions clashed over the nation's future, leading to the formation of the Russian Socialist Federative Soviet Republic and later the Soviet Union. The conflict involved the Red Army, led by the Bolsheviks under Lenin, against the White Army, a diverse coalition opposing Bolshevik rule. Various other groups, including anarchists and non-ideological forces, also participated. 13 foreign nations intervened against the Red Army, trying to re-establish the Eastern Front of World War I. Despite initial Bolshevik control, revolts and foreign intervention weakened their grip. The White Army launched offensives, but by 1920, they were defeated on all fronts. The Peace of Riga in 1921 saw disputed territories divided between Soviet Russia and Poland. Although Soviet Russia subdued some independence movements, resistance persisted in Central Asia and parts of Russia until the mid-1930s. Casualties numbered between 7 to 12 million, mostly civilians. World War II. World War II was a global conflict from 1939 to 1945 involving the Allies and the Axis powers. It was marked by extensive use of military and civilian resources, leading to widespread devastation and the loss of 70 to 85 million lives. The war began in 1939 with Nazi Germany's invasion of Poland, followed by declarations of war by the UK and France. Germany, allied with Italy, Japan, and Austria, quickly gained control over much of Europe. In June 1941, the European Axis powers, led by Germany, initiated an invasion of the Soviet Union, thereby opening the Eastern Front. Concurrently, Japan aimed for dominance in Asia, leading to conflict with the US and China. In December 1941, Japan's attack on American and British territories, including Pearl Harbor, prompted the US and UK to declare war. Despite Japan's initial success in the Western Pacific, setbacks occurred in 1942, such as the Battle of Midway, while Germany and Italy faced defeats in North Africa and at Stalingrad. Further setbacks for the Axis powers in 1943 led to their eventual defeat. In 1944, the Western Allies invaded German-occupied France, and the Soviet Union pushed Germany back, regaining lost territory. Meanwhile, Japan faced setbacks in mainland Asia, and the Allies weakened the Japanese Navy, capturing crucial Pacific islands. In 1945, Germany surrendered, followed by Japan after the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The war's end reshaped the world order, with the establishment of the United Nations and the emergence of the US and Soviet Union as superpowers, setting the stage for the Cold War. The Cold War. This geopolitical standoff between the United States and the Soviet Union dominated international relations from 1946 to 1991. Stemming from ideological differences, the conflict was characterized by political, economic, and military competition rather than direct warfare. Key events included the division of Europe into Western and Eastern blocs, the formation of military alliances like NATO and the Warsaw Pact, the Cuban Missile Crisis, and proxy wars in Korea and Vietnam. Both superpowers engaged in a nuclear arms race, leading to the development of vast arsenals of nuclear weapons and the doctrine of mutually assured destruction. The Cold War also involved intense espionage and propaganda efforts on both sides. The conflict eventually thawed in the late 1980s with the policies of Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev and culminated in the dissolution of the Soviet Union in 1991, marking the end of the Cold War era. The Korean War. This was a conflict between North Korea, backed by China and the Soviet Union, and South Korea, supported by the United Nations and primarily the United States. It began in 1950, when North Korean forces invaded South Korea, aiming to reunify the peninsula under communist rule. The United Nations, led by the US, intervened to support South Korea. The war saw significant back-and-forth fighting, with the front line stabilizing near the original border. The conflict ended 1953 in an armistice, not a peace treaty, leaving the Korean peninsula divided. The war resulted in around 1.5 to 4 million fatalities and left both North and South Korea deeply scarred. It also solidified the Cold War division of the Korean peninsula, which persists to this day. Vietnam War. The Vietnam War took place between 1955 and 1975. It was a major conflict of the Cold War, fought primarily between North Vietnam, supported by the Soviet Union, and China, and South Vietnam, backed by the United States and other anti-communist allies. The Vietnam War's impact extended beyond Vietnam's borders, intensifying the Laotian Civil War and the Cambodian Civil War. The Vietnam War originated from the division of Vietnam after the 1954 Geneva Conference. The country gained independence from French rule, but was split into two parts, North and South Vietnam. Conflict erupted when the Viet Cong, a communist guerrilla group in South Vietnam, initiated an insurgency against the South Vietnamese government. The North Vietnamese government, led by Ho Chi Minh, supported the Viet Cong with troops and supplies. Meanwhile, the United States became increasingly involved, providing financial and military support to South Vietnam. The war escalated after the Gulf of Tonkin incident in 1964, when the U.S. accused North Vietnam of attacking American ships in the Gulf of Tonkin. This led to a significant increase in U.S. military involvement, ultimately resulting in a prolonged and devastating conflict. The conflict lasted almost 20 years, with direct U.S. military involvement ending in 1973. Despite significant U.S. military efforts, the war ended with the fall of Saigon to North Vietnamese forces in 1975, leading to the reunification of Vietnam under communist rule. The war exacted a devastating human toll, with millions killed and displaced, and left lasting ecological damage due to the widespread use of toxic herbicides like Agent Orange. Great War of Africa. The Second Congo War, also known as the Great War of Africa, was a complex conflict that occurred from 1998 to 2003 in the Democratic Republic of the Congo and involved several neighboring countries. It stemmed from the aftermath of the First Congo War and the Rwandan Genocide. The Rwandan Genocide refers to the 1994 mass slaughter of an estimated 800,000 people by extremist Hutu militias. Following the assassination of Rwandan President Habyarimana, ethnic tensions erupted into violence, leading to one of the deadliest genocides in modern history. The conflict's aftermath, including the flight of millions of refugees into neighboring countries like the Democratic Republic of the Congo, contributed to regional instability and helped set the stage for the Second Congo War. The war involved multiple armed groups, rebel factions, and foreign interventions, driven by political, ethnic, and economic factors. Key players included the Congo government forces, various rebel groups, Mai-Mai militias, and foreign actors like Rwanda, Uganda, Burundi, Angola, Namibia, and Zimbabwe, each supporting different factions for their own interests. The conflict resulted in widespread violence, displacement of millions of people, and numerous human rights abuses. It was characterized by atrocities, including massacres, violence, and the widespread use of child soldiers. Despite numerous peace agreements and interventions by the international community, the war persisted for several years before formally ending in 2003, although violence and instability continued in the region. Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict traces back to the early 20th century, with roots in the competing national aspirations of Jews and Arabs in the territory historically known as Palestine. In 1948, the British withdrawal and the UN partition plan led to the establishment of the State of Israel, triggering full-scale hostilities in the region. At its core, the conflict revolves around competing claims to land and national identity, with both Israelis and Palestinians asserting ancestral ties to the same territory. This unresolved struggle for land and belonging has fueled ongoing conflict, characterized by cycles of violence and diplomatic stalemates, persisting to the present day. The broader Arab-Israeli conflict in the Middle East is an ongoing back and forth with various countries like Syria, Iran, Iraq, Lebanon involved. In 2024, tensions between Iran and Israel reached a new boiling point, leading to direct conflict. Israel's bombing of the Iranian consulate in Damascus on April 1st resulted in the deaths of several senior Iranian officials. In retaliation, Iran and its proxies launched strikes inside Israel on April 13th. Subscribe for more videos and like the video if you got any value out of it. Thanks for watching.